What's up, everyone? Today you can see that we have a change of venue. That's right, I'm not going to be picking gravel out of my hair tonight. I am over the moon. However, as you can see, the Supra, well, it's in a lot of pieces. But at the end of the day, it's all right because we need to do some modifications and some upgrades. Now, some of you guys are new to the channel, some of you guys are not. I did a little bit of video on this thing back when we were first putting it together, and then I decided I wanted to kind of go a little secretive because I was going to call out another content creator. And like a lot of you guys have said, there's only one person, there's only one grudge match. Unfortunately, that race never happened, but we were able to do quite a bit on this car. Unfortunately, it went from originally only going to be naturally aspirated to 16 pounds of boost through a supercharger. Now, that supercharger is awesome. Unfortunately, I put a stage 2 clutch in it, which was apparently not enough for the power we're making. My clutch was cooked. So one of the things I've already done, because it is very tedious, is drill out every single one of these screws, because once they go through a heating cycle and get filled with dust, they don't like coming apart. Also, the way that they actually fix the nut to the screw, you can't take it back apart. So, yeah, I went ahead, drilled it all out, and you can see this thing is, I mean, it is beat. It is warped. It is concave. It is just, it's got a few hot spots on it. This is all glazed, and all the individual little like raised pucks are gone. And this, not only do we have hot spots on it, but it's outright cracked. It's like glazed, hot spots, like very little surface left for it to grab onto. You know, cracked, delayering, just totally destroyed. Junk now. Now, I gotta say, that was a good clutch. There was nothing wrong with the manufacturing of the clutch. And it did last me 2 years. In fact, I didn't have a single problem with it until we decided to go full 16 pounds of boost. Now, we're going with individual pucks. So like I said, it still has a spring in the center of it to make it still drivable on the street. And then one thing I didn't like though is the kit comes with this centering tool and it has no way of centering it. They've removed the actual little tit off of it. It's gone. It's titless. It is, you know, has the right amount of splines and all, but otherwise virtually useless. So we're gonna go ahead and make sure that this, nice and clean. After you install a brand new clutch, make sure you go through the manufacturer's break-in period. For stage 2, it was something like 500 miles. So we're going to go ahead and do that with the stage 3.5 before we start doing massive burnouts. And yeah, I'll try. This, make sure you read, this thing says flywheel side, make sure you do that. Lift this bad mama jamma up into place like so. Oh, I left the bolts on there. Take the bolts off before lifting it up into place like so. Now that you get the bolts out of the way, go ahead, put your clutch and your alignment tool into place. Now that's pretty close to where we're going to want it to be. Don't tighten this down until you're 100% sure that's where you're going to want to be, because otherwise your life is going to be miserable afterwards. So we're going to slide this on like so. Just a couple turns with them. Just engage them. Don't get all the way on there. Don't tighten it down. Just engage your bolts. Like so. Now you're centered. Then what we're going to go ahead and do is take them back out and put a little bit of blue Loctite on them. Now with Loctite and any other type of thing, make sure you read your torque specs and understand if it's supposed to be or not supposed to be Loctited. Because although this will, and I mean a tiny bit, and a little bit goes a long way. As you're turning it, actually, just a little tiny dot. As you're turning it, it will actually, you know, work its way around the thread. But remember, torquing with dry specifications versus wet specifications are totally different. You can end up over torquing something. So I'm going to go ahead, get this thing tidied up, and then we can go ahead and start putting the transmission back on. Now that we got the stage 3 clutch installed onto our ultralight flywheel, let's go ahead and cover what we have in front of us. This is an R154 transmission. Although it's significantly lighter than something like an A833 transmission or a Muncie what's in here, in Muncie M22 Rock Crusher, they're fairly heavy. This thing right here is a 5-speed aluminum housing, weighs, I don't know, it weighs something. It's not super heavy, not super light. It has an adapter, a bell housing adapter to a factory automatic 1UZ transmission. That way we can run this. This is a factory transmission out of a Mark III Toyota Supra turbo. Pretty stout transmission because they were designed for trucks, and it feels like it. It's not the most, you need to shift it with a purpose. You can't sit there and kind of like feel your way. You got to give it. And as long as you can do that, you're going to have a good time, except for third gear. That thing is a pain in the neck to find. Make sure your little ball bushing that goes from your shifter into the actual transmission is in good shape. I did a video on that. Highly recommend you put a brand new one in. They're like next to nothing. Behind it is this super lightweight aluminum flywheel, aluminum drive shaft. This is not a flywheel. This thing right here weighs, again, next to nothing. I've actually had this for a very long time, and it's been through 3 cars because I didn't want to give it up when I sold the car. I ended up putting the 2-piece drive shaft, which I don't know why they did a 2-piece in this thing. I don't understand. I don't know. But the goal is to reduce our loss, our parasitic drag, and I think we did a pretty good job. Now we're going to go ahead and install this. Inside here is a C5 Corvette slave cylinder. The cool thing about the slave cylinder is instead of having a fork and all this pivoting nonsense, this right here just cups your pressure plate, pushes it in. It's awesome. Highly recommend doing this upgrade. If you're sitting and driving like an old 67 Camaro, or a fork with a hydraulic piston that pushed up against the fork, that's like a massive increase in quality of drive. It's awesome. If you go from that to this, it's night and day. So if you're driving around in your old like 72 Satellite, old Buick, Camaro, whatever, highly recommend getting yourself a Corvette slave cylinder from a C5 and doing an upgrade so that you can run one of these. I don't know. Every car is different, so you're going to have something different. This particular adapter plate allows it, and it's well worth it. It is so freaking awesome. So we're going to go ahead and install this, and from there, we should be able to do some tidying up of the engine, and then we can drop the car back on it, and then fight with that. Now, there's a few things I want to go over before we continue. One, make sure you have your drive shaft, or at least the yoke, pretty close by, so that you can get the splines to meet up. Also make sure it's in a gear, and do not install your transmission into alignment using the bolts. You can do that if you would like to destroy like your pilot bearing and mess everything else up. Don't do it, just don't do it. Make sure that you get it into alignment by hand. I know it's a struggle, but trust me, don't do it wrong. Because you'll be taking it all back apart, put a new pilot bearing in, and you're going to hate yourself. So I have these in, which that one was not in alignment at all. I have these in barely to the point where they're more than just a few turns of engagement. That way, I could take the block out from underneath it, and I can manhandle it into its location. Currently, my splines are lined up. It's just a matter of getting the dang little pilot freaking offset pin nonsense all sorted out. Fortunately, I don't have to actually use offset pins in this, but a lot of like the F-body stuff, if you're going to be doing modifications with it, you have aftermarket bell housing. If I was to switch this over to like a T56 and I didn't have an OEM bell housing, you might have to go get the offset pins. And if you're interested in learning how to do that, you can actually watch an episode of Hemming's Garage that I did with Junior Nebitson. Awesome dude. I'll put a link in it if I can remember. But offset pins are a nightmare. He's very smart. He did a really good job explaining it. But I'm going to go ahead and struggle with this probably for the next hour until I get the pins to line up and actually want to go in with each other, because, you know, it may happen in 2 seconds, or I could be here for an hour. So I'll be right back. Oh, that breeze feels nice. One downside of being inside of a garage is air movement isn't nearly as frequent as outside. Self-explanatory. You're not outside. Anywho, I've gone ahead and did some rewiring with some, I wouldn't say rewiring. I went ahead and changed the pathway of a few wires because I have full access to the engine now instead of it being up inside the car. You know, easy stuff now. Which is actually cool. I got about that much of the starter wire gone and about this much of the wire that would have actually gone to this side. Now, it doesn't matter. It's more efficient, weighs less. I got to drop this down on here, align stuff, and hopefully not break anything in the process. So, yeah. Up first. Then down. This is going to take a lot of time.
One eternity later.
Now, that was quite the procedure, but it's back together and I'm really, really excited. Now, you might be asking, why did I have to go ahead and take the engine and transmission in the cradle, the whole subframe, drop it out the bottom? Well, when I first put this car together, the goal was to have the engine as far down and as far back as possible. In fact, if you actually look at where everything is, it's pretty darn close, if not a mid-front engine car. And I'm really, really excited about how the weight distribution should end up being. We will weigh that after we do the battery replacement and all this other stuff. That will be in a later video. Today, I'm just really happy we got the clutch in and I took care of one of the major problems that I've had. I haven't been able to get the car to tune properly. And what I mean by that is I will have one of the banks, generally I think it was the passenger side, was like 13.1 AFR, and the other side would be like 11 something, low 11s, like almost a whole 2 spread, not 0.2, whole 2 spread. So getting this thing to tune properly has been an utter nightmare. And the reason that is, it's very important when you build an exhaust for it to be equal length and have a nice Y intersection and go back. I did bring the car to a local shop. I needed it fairly quickly. It kind of turned into a thing, and unfortunately, the way that the exhaust actually was shaped, you can see it on the floor in the beginning, it was kind of, you know, it came in wide into the other one instead of having a nice, like, even distribution. It went 2 2.5s into 1 2.5, and then they cut the flange off the 3-inch exhaust, and then they upsized it from the 2.5 single pipe into the single 3-inch. So it was not very efficient at all. And I did install a set of the, and I'll put a picture of what it is. It's a nice set of cutouts that are electric. It's very easy to get at. It's really great. You just press the single switch. Just watch this. Just how awesome this is, right? So you just turn the car on. Open up the center console like so. And there's a switch. And I don't know, this is automatically picking up audio. I don't know how well you can hear, but you can just hear the difference between, and then we drop it back down. It quiets back up. So I did check the computer, and I'll put a picture up, and it's hovering between, it's like 1 to being flat, or within 0.1. So there is a little bit of a difference, but it's not significant. Part of that might be because I need to retune the computer, but as far as it goes right now, it is very even. So tuning this will be significantly easier. And I'm just very grateful. Now I do have some concerns about my placement of the cutouts. The exhaust cutouts are very low, and I am worried about hitting speed bumps and stuff like that, or even like a lull in someone's driveway. I will remedy that this winter. I'm hoping we can get that to my buddy who, you know, 1945 Speed and Custom is probably my best choice. They are awesome. They're down in Troy. I'm hoping we can get the exhaust rebuilt and I can take the cutouts, scoot them back and up inside the tunnel well a little bit better than where they are now. I am worried. Scoot it back and up into the tunnel well a little bit further, and it's not falling on deaf ears that it is potentially going to drag. I am very worried. I don't have this car completely slammed, so there's that. Other than that, the car is pretty much back together except for a few things that we're going to do in a later episode. Big part is the battery. We are going to replace it with a lithium iron battery, and we need to go ahead and finish putting the bumper, anti-sway bars, and our new air shrouds and stuff like that on it. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit the link down below where it says LunarOutlaw.com. See what kind of new swag we have. We're trying to do some one-offs, like you can get yourself a brand new, it's a smaller sticker for your toolbox. I'm really excited about those. You can get them in 2 different flavors, standard, and I'm calling it hieroglyphic, flat, it's like shiny, it's shiny. But guys, I'm really excited. The biggest issue I've had was the clutch. After we got that thing to get 16 pounds of boost, it didn't like it. Now we have a much more aggressive one, and I'm looking forward to taking it to the drag strip and getting it down to Twisted Synergy for a dyno session. That will be a different day. Until the next time, remember, keep your shiny side up. God bless.